This morning we are going to offer you a virtual theater of the Word. We try very hard in this time to provide an experience when we can't be together that has value and depth. And so this will be no exception. In the Facebook chat window, you're going to notice that there's things inserted as we go along to provide you a chance to participate if you so feel called, to reflect upon, or something that will simply add depth and meaning to the story. So I encourage you to utilize those if you feel that you want to participate, or come back to it and click on the links and find things that will take you deeper into our understanding. There's pictures, and there's music videos, and there's educational materials, lots of things for you to come back and participate with and see later. I'd like to give a big shout out to Susan Hofflander in Chicago, who is doing this all virtually. So when I say it, the words will appear as opposed to here. I'm actually coming to you from the future. We're about 30 seconds in your future, so behold. But that's kind of cool, so I'm thankful for that. I would also like to give a special thank you to a Facebook friend of mine, Michael Bland. I reached out to Michael with this topic. We're going to talk about some things today that are topical and current, and I needed a black person's perspective to make sure that this white person is presenting both sides of the argument in a good and truthful way, and Michael was gracious enough to share his time with me. In fact, some of the words you hear today are actually his words that we have incorporated into what we're presenting. And I do want to give a special thank you to my colleague, Max Otanowitz, who will be joining me in bringing this adventure to life. With that being said, let's get a cup of coffee, a glass of water, a soda. Let's quiet our hearts, and would you join me in prayer? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. The sun was shining and the breeze was blowing through my backyard last week. I set up a hammock that I bought a few years ago and was enjoying relaxing in it as it swayed in the breeze. I could hear the hum of the neighborhood lawnmowers and secretly gave thanks for Alex, the guy we pay to come and cut our grass. The smell of fresh cut grass on a hot summer's day really brings me back. I remember playing in my bedroom while my dad meticulously manicured his lawn right outside my bedroom window. Well, sometimes I would even help. Such good memories laying here, relaxing, just resting my eyes. I find myself standing here at this pulpit. I don't know why I'm standing here. I don't know what I'm supposed to do while standing here, and everyone is looking at me. Well, at least in this dream, I'm wearing clothes. Well, I better say something. I'm sure what I'm supposed to do will come to me if I can just start. Super tough time to be thrown in front of all people. I better just say something. Let me see. Okay. You think we as a people would learn. You think that after a riot, the message would get heard, understood, absorbed, and things would change. Riot squads, fire departments, thousands of people protesting for days. Am I talking about Minneapolis last month? Or am I talking about New York City on this date, June 28th, 1969, when lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered people declared gay power for the first time? Or am I talking about South Central Los Angeles in 1992 after a jury found white policemen not guilty of beating a black motorist named Rodney King, despite videotape clearly showing them beating and kicking King? Or am I talking about the Red Summer of 1919? The country was recovering from World War I, bitterly divided by racial and gender tensions and anti-immigration fervor, and ravaged by the deadly Spanish flu epidemic. Wait, is it really that much the same? Has nothing changed in 100 years?
Wow, this is really turning out to be a downer.
Who said that?
Yep. A downer. Riots, looting, plagues. Oh my.
Hey, it's the Angel of a Fabulous. I remember you from a dream I had last year. Nice to see you again. Well, I must say, these are unprecedented times, and we have to talk about it.
Of course we need to talk about it, but there is more than one way to fry an egg.
To fry an egg?
Give me a break. I just flew down from heaven, and my jokes might be still warming up.
Fair enough. Okay, so what is the take of heaven on what's going on around here?
You mean, what do we in heaven think the Earth is moving from a third density reality to a fifth density reality?
Well, I guess.
Or is this Armageddon, where we start with plagues, killer hornets, riots, and fiery flames and just move up the scale?
Well, is it?
Or do we think that this is a collective dark night of the soul, and everyone is being called to accountability?
Yeah, something like that. What does heaven think?
Doesn't matter what heaven thinks. What do you think is going on?
Me?
Not just you, the collective you. The world. What do you think about it?
I don't understand.
What's not to understand? What do you think about it? This is your world. What's happening to you right now, to all of you, has to have an effect on your collective experience.
Well, of course it does. But there's no easy answer to all of this and how it makes each one of us feel. I mean, I do know this. The energy right now is all over the place. Some minutes I feel great, like I can take on the world. I'm writing new music now that I hope can change the world. And other moments, I feel I don't know what to do or how to feel or how to help. And other times I feel like I don't really like humanity much.
Yes, all the feelings. Sounds like you're having an existential crisis.
Well, we've all been locked inside for so long with an invisible enemy that no one seems to really know how it spreads or how contagious it is. Well, and we're in a pandemic. So we take precautions. Until we don't. What started with a pandemic evolved into something called murder hornets? What the heck is that? They threatened to destroy the very food supply by killing off the good bees. And then the tragedy of George Floyd's execution was the straw that broke this dam of emotions that launched into protests and riots and fires, burning down our hometown. Places I grew up and walked in, the Arby's I helped open when I was 17, burned to the ground. And people I know on both sides of an issue that really has only one answer. The answer is so simple, yet history has repeated again. We cannot seem to learn that simple answer.
And what is that simple answer?
Well, I would say that the simple answer is love, but that seems a convenient sidestep. I think it's really more the second part of the Great Commandment, love your neighbor as yourself.
All your neighbors?
Well, when you say it like that, I feel like I don't know what the right answer is.
Of course it's all your neighbors. Your black neighbors, your Asian neighbors, your white neighbors, your indigenous neighbors, your straight neighbors, your gay neighbors. But why is the world focusing on the Black Lives Matter movement right now?
Because of systemic racism?
Not wrong, but too easy. What does that mean?
Well, I'm not sure. That phrase gets thrown around a lot.
It means that no matter how good a heart you have, no matter how kind you think you are, there are things in your everyday experience as a white person, more so for a white male, that give you an advantage over others because you were born a white male. And while you may truly wish no harm to come to anyone, disparity exists, whether you know it and can admit it or not, in how people of color are treated and in the opportunities they receive.
Oh, so it's sort of like that lecture Jane Elliot gave when she asked all the white people in an auditorium to stand if they would be happy to receive the same treatment in our society that we in general grant our black citizens.
Yes, great example. What happened?
No one stood up.
Which means those people knew on a conscious level what happens to black people in society, and they did not want the same thing for themselves.
Sadly, I think the answer would be the same today, if we're being honest.
Then the question begs, if you don't want it for yourself, why would you accept it or allow it for someone else? How does that fit into your simple answer?
It doesn't, but I just don't know where to start.
You start by educating yourself. You start by learning the real history so that you can understand and feel the full level of pain experienced by people of color. You start where your scriptures led you today, the parable of the lost sheep. Also, a great explanation for those that don't understand the Black Lives Matter movement and counter it with all lives matter. Of course, all lives matter. But it's the Black, Indigenous, and people of color's lives that are in jeopardy right now in disproportionate numbers, just as in the parable. All the sheep matter, but the shepherd went after the one lost sheep because her life mattered too. So for that brief moment, her life was the focus of the shepherd. It did not mean that the shepherd cared less for the 99 that were all still together. It meant that the one sheep also mattered and therefore received the focused attention of the shepherd until she was found safe and returned to the flock. Hello. Now is the time to focus on our BIPOC members of your world community and ensure that they are as safe and feel as safe and secure as you do. This particular time in the evolution of your world, your day-to-day experience has been allowed to slow briefly, allowing for more time for self-examination, if you choose to take the time to do so. I encourage you to look deeply within. Be honest with yourself. Determine if you have been a good shepherd, or as the earlier reading called to light, a bad shepherd.
Yeah, it did not paint those shepherds in a flattering light. The proverbial wolf in sheep's clothing.
But leave the jokes to me. But yes, someone who is assigned as a caregiver, abusing that power and truly caring for nothing but their own gain, carries a lot of karma with it, and not the good kind.
I would think those of us with white privilege would need to be the ones helping ensure our black neighbors have the same opportunities as our white neighbors. Man, I hate thinking of myself as a recipient of white privilege.
But until you can say it and own it, you are part of the problem. Look, it isn't about blame. It's about acknowledging the fact that because you have an easier time of certain things in society, you can use that position and influence to help change things for people of color. You as an artist can use your art to influence other people to action. I mean, you've already kind of started.
Well, what do you mean?
You talked about working on a song earlier. What did that song say?
Oh, we can be free? Well, it's sort of a political commentary that says things are not always what they seem, and no, basically we are the start of the revolution, and we are the source of the changes that we wish to see. Forgiveness, unity, courage, kindness, empathy, and love are the seeds to that change. And that change comes from within each of us if we choose to open and free our minds.
That isn't wrong. Part of that opening and freeing of your mind is acknowledging your privilege and power and helping ensure that all people have the same support, opportunities, and rights, not just on paper, but in the real world, as you do. Black people have been trying to tell white folks about their struggle for centuries. It's only now that white scholars like Tim Wise, Robin DiAngelo, read that book, White Fragility, I have a copy. And as you mentioned earlier, Jane Elliot, are talking about the disparity that white folks are starting to wake up. It's only these enlightened white folks that can help other white folks wake up and understand that racism goes beyond what you may intend or how you may feel about someone. It affects every sector of the human experience. People are allowed to take advantage or are disadvantaged simply by the color of their skin. The song is great, and it would be awesome for all of us to sing along, but more than that, it would be awesome if we turned it into actions. You follow Jesus, WWJD.
Boy, let's talk about all the tough stuff today.
Oh, honey, if there were ever a time to talk about the tough stuff, hello, now is that time.
Okay, fair. Well, I think Jesus would be out protesting with people. I mean, he wasn't afraid of the powerful and of speaking truth to power. The good Christian in me would like to say he would be focusing on healing the hearts of everyone, but that's far too Pollyanna for Jesus of Nazareth. He would call those shepherds who are false shepherds to task for sure. Those in leadership who are more concerned with how something polls than how it actually helps create lasting change and true equality for all people.
Good thoughts.
You know what chaps my fanny?
Chaps you?
Yep.
Quoting your grandmother?
Yeah, she was feisty, wasn't she? Yeah, but the expression fits. It chaps my fanny when others who claim to follow Jesus blatantly defile his teachings.
You're on to something important here that ties in with it all. What do you mean?
Well, it states clearly in the Great Commandment, as we talked about earlier, to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Yet, I see so-called Christians acting against that, or just being jerks. Some even weaponize their whiteness.
Mm-hmm. And what do you do about it?
What do you mean?
Did I stutter? Was there a word that you didn't understand? When you see that happening, what do you do about it? Why do you allow them to retain the name of Christian if their actions clearly are not? Why do you allow posers to use your sacred text and twist it to their meaning?
Well, I figured God would intervene.
Oh, come on now. You know how that's not how this works. That chaps my fanny. You were created in the image of God as a creator to do your work in this world. You were each given a spark of source energy to create what you want to happen. You all have free will to create what you want to create. What did you say in your song, Jesus to the World?
To ignite the spirit and for good to overcome, we must heed the calling. We must be the hands and feet of God.
Yes! This is not just a sermon, it is also a commercial for your music.
Hey,
yes!
Copyright. I didn't have to worry about that, okay?
It is up to each of you to put on your big girl and big boy and big person pants and dig deep. This will take everyone's involvement to make the change. Christ commissioned his followers to go into the world and share the good news. And that good news is this: you are eternal. You are loved. You have the power to make this world a better place for all people. The key is, if you choose. Choose to make a difference, or don't. Choose to make the world equal, or don't. It's really that simple. But do not think that if you choose the don't choice, you get to call yourself a follower of Christ.
Wow, you are not holding back any punches.
Why should I? As I said, it chaps my fanny. It really is that simple. As Yoda said,
do or do not, there is no try.
Okay. So, okay, not for the impressions. That's cool. We'll skip that. Remember, Yoda also, other thing, called out that you must unlearn what you have learned. To be changed, you must be willing to look at all that you have been taught and the world around you and to see it through the lens of Christ. You each incarnated in this time, in this place, to be what the world needs now. For such a time as this, you were created. Now the question begs, what will you do with this time?
Well, I came across this statement from French existentialist author Albert Camus. In his novel The Stranger, Camus writes, "My dear, in the midst of hate, I found there was within me an invincible love. In the midst of tears, I found there was within me an invincible smile. In the midst of chaos, I found there was within me an invincible calm. I realized that through it all, in the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. And that makes me happy. For it says that no matter how hard the world pushes against me, there's something stronger, something better, pushing right back."
And remember, you are in the season of pride. As you pointed out in the beginning of our time, the parallels are striking. Pride is about a group of people pushing back, demanding to be treated as humans and not judged by whom they love. LGBT people said, no more.
Sort of feels like pride was called off this year, though.
Well, not called off, but for far longer, people of color have been saying no more. Now is the time to finally change, for all time, how you view and treat your fellow sparks of source energy in their human suits traveling with you on this blue-green spaceship hurtling through the cosmos. Because bottom line, you have no right to view anyone as less than the perfection that they are.
Yes, I agree.
Hello? Amen. You want the real tea? You each are a spark of source energy equal to every other spark of source energy ever created and that will ever be created. You are, at your core, all part of the one God, the source, if you will. You all came from that source and you will all return to that source. Each one of you vibrate with a unique vibration all your own, and when allowed, those vibrations work together to create a vast harmony far beyond the comprehension of the memory units supplied to you in your Earth suits. That's your minds for you in the back of the class. You cannot begin to fathom the majesty of all of creation when you are allowed to vibrate, each in your own way, singing your own song, adding to this magnificent chorus of creation. No one vibration outshines the other. Not one single soul is worth more or less than another, ever. Like the facets of a diamond, every soul is different and adds to the brilliant sparkle that is life on this planet. If given the same chance for exposure, every facet will shine when the light calls it to shine.
Oh, I so want that for our world.
Well, you asked earlier what heaven thinks. Heaven hopes that you all make the choice to create a world where each person is given their divine right to shine and vibrate as they are called to by the one who calls your name to all things. It is the hope of heaven that each of you celebrate your sisters and brothers and friends of color in the same way that you celebrate the season of Pride. Pride isn't canceled. It's called back to its inception. It's calling to you, to all people, to truly celebrate the diversity, the uniqueness, the talent, and the myriad colors of the rainbow for once and for all.
I'm jostled awake in my hammock as the dogs jump up, deciding they too want to sway in the breeze. Sounds of the mowers have faded and are replaced by the songs of the birds and the cackling of a squirrel chased off the yard by said dogs. As the dogs settle and I linger in and out of consciousness, I hear the remnants of a dream.
When you see it happening, call it out. Be the change. Forgiveness, unity, courage, kindness. Use the words you wrote to encourage others. All of heaven is watching.
Well, I guess it's clear. We must be the hands and feet of God. Amen.